Are you meticulously counting calories but your scale won't budge? Stay tuned to learn 4 reasons you are in a calorie deficit but not losing weight. After not losing weight while counting calories for nearly 2 years, I finally figured out the diet mistakes I was making as a woman over 40. Now before we get into it, please like the video and subscribe. I want to show you how I finally got my scale to budge even after nothing else seemed to work. Hey, I'm Nissa, and my 100-pound weight loss story was featured in media like People magazine and Pop Sugar. Since then, I've helped hundreds of women break free from fad and yo-yo diets with the same simple macro approach I use to lose 100 pounds. Okay, let's talk about how to lose weight while counting calories and 4 reasons why you're not losing weight while in a calorie deficit. Let's start this video out with just a little bit of tough love. Now, what worked for you in your 20s or maybe even your 30s might not work as well for you as a 40-something or above woman. While I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, once I hit 40, I feel like the weight loss game just completely changed. All of a sudden, I struggled to lose weight with all of my favorite diet tools I used to lose 100 pounds, like keto, intermittent fasting, and even high-intensity cardio workouts. I came to a point my hormones refused to tolerate the stressors these various dieting tools came along with. My cortisol peaked and then it completely crashed, leaving me with chronic fatigue, daily headaches and migraines, plus rapid weight gain that showed no signs of slowing down for more than 2 years. It wasn't until I fine-tuned what we're about to talk about that I was finally able to not only get the scale to stop going up, but my weight has finally reversed directions and I'm on the path to reaching my health and fitness goals, yes, even over 40. So let's talk about why you're not losing weight in a calorie deficit. One of the biggest reasons most women won't lose weight in a calorie deficit is you jump into an aggressive diet where you set your calories way too low because you want to lose weight as quickly as possible. I know we have all been there. And while it may be possible for you to stick to very low calories, maybe during the week or even the first few weeks, once the weekend hits, all of a sudden it is a complete binge fest. Now, this type of behavior is pretty common, and it's actually a result of your physiology doing what it's supposed to do. Basically, if you're far too restrictive all week long, your body thinks that now you're in a famine and it will overpower every last ounce of willpower that you have. Now, this means that you may find yourself cramming down as much food as you can, as fast as you can, basically so you don't die. And while we all know another 7-Eleven is right around the corner with their gross roller hot dogs, whatever those things are, your physiology is still stuck in the caveman days when famines were a pretty big deal, and basically you could die if you didn't binge eat whenever you had the chance. Now, when it comes to consistent weight loss, even if you are able to stick to a very low calorie plan throughout the week, but this weekend binging lifestyle sounds a little bit too familiar, those 2 or 3 days where you overeat will definitely outdo any calorie cutting that you did earlier that week. Now, a better solution to overcoming this cycle of diet self-destruction is to set up a less aggressive plan. Test out a more moderate calorie deficit where you don't have to be so restrictive during the week. That way, your physiology won't do its thing and lead to an all-out binge on the weekends or even a few weeks into your diet. Basically, you need to quit rushing the fat loss process with a diet that is setting you up for rebound weight gain right from the start. Instead, create a more realistic health habits that lead to big changes long term, like eating in a deficit that's enough to lose somewhere around half a pound to 1 pound each week instead of shooting to lose 3 to 5 pounds each and every week. The second reason you may not be losing weight in a calorie deficit is you're not actually in a calorie deficit. While figuring out your deficit with an online calculator is really a great place to start, these calculators can only provide an estimate on the deficit that will result in weight loss. So while you can use them as a tool to help you get started, you don't want to take these estimates as complete gospel. You may have to put in a little bit of extra work in order to figure out the correct deficit for your body in order to reach your goals. And Even then, you're still not completely set up for a consistent plan because eventually your metabolism is going to change and it is going to adapt as you lose weight. So then you'll have to figure out everything all over again in order to start losing. This is a common reason for a lot of weight loss plateaus. And that's why it's important for you to understand how to calculate macros the right way, as well as how to adjust as you proceed throughout your fat loss journey. Now, one way to figure out if you're following the right deficit is to track everything you eat for at least 2 weeks. And I need you to be patient because during this time, your goal actually isn't weight loss. Your goal at this point is to track what you eat in order to figure out the amount of calories that you need just to maintain your weight. And once you figure that part out, then you can subtract somewhere around 300 to 500 calories, depending on how active you are. Now that should put you in enough of a deficit to consistently lose somewhere around 1 pound per week, especially if you're getting in some activity like walking. Now, another option to calculate your maintenance calories is to get an RMR test at your local DexaFit or whatever facility does those tests by you. This test will help you understand how many calories your body burns with the very minimal amount of activity you do each day. Now, once you understand this number, you can figure out the appropriate calorie deficit that's right for you because you're getting information that is tailored to your body. Now, if you do go this route and you find that you have a slow metabolism from years of yo-yo diets or crash diets, I don't want you to rip open a bag of Doritos and cry yourself to sleep. The good news is there are ways to speed up your metabolism in order to make long-term fat easier. You just have to have a lot of patience and you have to be willing to put in the work. Okay, a third reason that you may not be in a deficit is you're not tracking both calories and movement accurately. If you're someone who just wings weight loss by eyeballing what you eat and then you add up your macros in your head, take a few weeks where you actually track correctly, where you're using a food scale as well as a macro app. Now, I'm willing to bet your mind will be absolutely blown since most women underestimate their calories by up to 50% or even more. So just because you think you're eating 1,200 calories a day, that actually doesn't mean you're eating 1,200 calories per day if you're not tracking the right way. And also, your goal probably should never be 1,200 calories per day, since that's how many calories my 2-year-old ate back in the day. And this is far too low for most women, but that's another video completely. Okay, before I go off on any more tangents about health experts who promote starvation diets, another thing to consider is even if you are tracking meals accurately, are you also adding in all of your nibbles, bites, and licks? Because if you're not, you could be eating an extra few hundred calories per day when you say lick the bowl that you use to bake your protein brownies. Or maybe you finish the food from your kid's plate. There's another couple hundred calories right there. And if you're doing that all day, every day, that's a lot of extra calories. And of course, you know, those hundreds of calories per day can lead to a big fat weight loss stall, especially for us gals over 40 who need to be more dialed in. Now, something else that's important to consider is once you slash calories, your body will actually fight against you by also slashing your movement. It does this as a countermeasure to your fat loss plan because it wants to stay alive. Again, it's not so much of an issue these days to find food when you need it, but your body doesn't care that it's 2023 and that there's fast food pretty much around every corner. So when you slash calories, your body slashes movement in order to help you conserve your fat stores. The only way to outsmart your physiology in this scenario is to track your movement. Make sure that your steps stay consistently somewhere in the 8,000 to 10,000 range, since this is the range that seems to work best for fat loss. And if you just took a deep breath of dread because you're not anywhere near that many steps per day, a great fat loss habit is to work up to that number consistently over the next few weeks. Also, if you're eating out multiple times each week or you're relying too heavily on packaged or highly processed foods, then you, my friend, are eating way more calories than you think. First off, packaged foods are allowed to have up to a 20% variance from what the label states. This means you could be eating up to 20% more than you think you are if you're relying on these types of foods in your fat loss plan. And that doesn't even get into the fact that these foods are engineered to make you want to eat more, since they contain binders and chemicals that leave you feeling hungry pretty much no matter how much you eat. Now, if you're going out to eat too often, it's also true that you're probably eating way more calories than you think. Even with the astronomical calorie counts listed on a lot of restaurant websites, have you seen the Cheesecake Factory's menu? There could be even more calories lurking in your meals than the restaurant list. And that's because restaurants use excess sugars or fats to make your meal extra tasty. Plus, there are different people making your food each time, so what's a regular scoop to one person is going to be a heaping scoop for someone else. So even if they're adding just a little bit too much oil, that can tack on a few hundred extra calories to your meal that you never accounted for. And when you add in the pre-meal bread and butter, or maybe even chips and salsa, which we are all guilty of overeating, that is a huge weight loss stall in plain sight. Okay, the final reason that you're in a calorie deficit but you're not getting results on the scale is you're not tracking the right things. Just because the scale doesn't drop doesn't mean that you're not dropping body fat. In fact, if you're losing weight the right way, where you're in a moderate calorie deficit and you're also resistance training somewhere around 3 to 4 times pretty heavy each week, then your scale may not drop for the first 12 weeks or more of your plan. This exact scenario happened to me when I first began my flexible diet last April. Now, even though I was tracking calories, eating in a deficit, and adding way more activity, the scale bounced around the mid 180 pound range for like 3 months. Since I was feeling good and my clothes were getting looser, I actually just decided to stick with my plan no matter what the scale said. Now, I also tracked my progress in other ways, like with weekly progress photos, or even like tracking around my belly button once a month to see if that measurement was going down. Now, while the photos and the measurements don't change a whole lot week to week, when you look at my body 3 months apart, there's a big difference in my body composition, even though the scale didn't really move. Now, the reason for this is I was adding more lean muscle to my body while I was also dropping more fluffy fat. Once I had the muscle gains most beginners get at the start of a resistance training plan, then the number on the scale finally started dropping somewhere around half to 1 pound each week. And since I was getting stronger, I knew this was body fat and not losing precious muscle. Now, maybe a half to 1 pound doesn't seem like a lot, but it is more sustainable to lose weight if you want to do this for good. It's also far better than dropping the weight much more quickly, like a lot of plans promote, and then regaining it once you can no longer stick to your plan because it's just too much for your body and your physiology. So even though the scale can provide a lot of feedback with how your plan is going, you need to also learn to rely on tracking your progress in other ways, like how you feel, your body measurements, your progress photos, and also how your clothes fit. Okay, so those are 4 big reasons you are not losing weight in a calorie deficit. Let me know in the comments if you can relate to any of these reasons. I will see you next week, but in the meantime, you can check the description for the link to get my 5 top fat loss tips for women over 40, which is eatingfatisthenewskinny.com/tips. And I will also add coaching details in case you are ready to take your plan to the next level.